All right, so the question is Real Housewives, Bravo TV, this hit reality show with 20 seasons. Now, with 20 seasons, that is a lot of cast members. 20 seasons, a lot of different casts, yes, but who are the stars? Who are like the top dogs of the franchise? Yes, it's just reality TV, and it's just, you know, cast members having fun and creating drama and making a great show. But when you think of Real Housewives of Orange County, which aired all those years ago, and now we have so many cast members we've been watching on Bravo, who are the top dogs? Who are the all-stars? Now, as you know, I'm always podcast, radio. I've done all this stuff for a long time on my channel, of course, randomlyronniejr.com. There's like over 1,500 episodes. But here's a flashback where we're breaking it down and finding out who are the top dogs within the franchise.
You know, I loved Regis Philbin. Kathy Lee Gifford was so funny, specifically when she was on with Hoda, but also with Regis, and I like that style of show. Let me just tell you, if I could wave the magic wand, I and Melissa Gorga would do a competitive Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelos kind of show. That would be my co-host. Like, I feel like I'm that talented. Melissa Gorga is clearly that talented, and so yeah, it'd be going down. She is a superstar. All right, so when we are talking about pop culture or reality TV, you do got to think, who is the superstar and what makes somebody a superstar? Now, in terms of reality TV, the genre has continued to change over and over and over. Of course, the original, the PBS documentary, All American Family, and then, of course, you have in 1992, The Real World. And then when it really became a business, you know, it did become a business with, you know, Kardashians or the Osbournes, Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson. Like, there's just really been very many layers when it comes to reality TV and the star power. But then you have this gigantic leap in terms of reality TV and Bravo TV. You know, Bravo originally started more so on a space where they did, you know, it was everything from fashion to hair care to fitness. You know, Bravo really was a different type of network back in the day. In fact, some of the shows, Flipping Houses, you know, they really had a really wonderful entry point, and then it went to The Real Housewives. But listen, if we're going to talk about The Real Housewives, this is what I want to do today. I wanted to do who are the top Real Housewives cast members across all franchises, and who are the three, oh yes, there are three, who are the three most overrated Real Housewives cast members. And again, each of them, the good, the superstars, and the overrated, you do have to tip your hat to them to show up every day for work, to put yourself out there, to put yourself on camera, potentially get edited in such a way. The fan bases all across the board, it's this or that. So we're not trying to knock anybody, but there are some overrated Real Housewives cast members that may have had their egos inflated just a bit. But first, let's talk about some of my favorite Real Housewives reality superstars that have made their reality TV show such a success. And whether they're on the show or they're off the show, if they leave the show or they come back, these are some of the cast members within the Real Housewives franchise that I think will always be superstars. Okay, listen, no matter where, no matter how wacky, no matter how silly, no matter about her talking about wanting to go hang out with John back in the day, Sonja Morgan, the goofiness, to me, this is what you have to do when you're doing reality TV. You know, I believe she started on the 3rd season of The Real Housewives of New York, but she was very much, she might have been sprinkled into the 2nd season as well. But the point is, once she jumped onto the screen in the 3rd season of Real Housewives of New York, you knew she was a superstar. She had a lot to say. She was balancing so many things. And yes, her character, she did become more of a caricature. She was more wacky Sonja. She'll talk anything from bowel movements to these darn antidepressants, and just being, you know, almost like a shut-in, you know, giving almost like a Grey Gardens vibe in terms of who she became on the show. But, you know, balancing this chaos and this townhouse, and I gotta sell it, this, that, and the other. One of the things is, yes, she's not gonna be called like the Lucille Ball of Real Housewives franchise cast members, no, but she was wacky, and it was good to watch on the TV. And I think that going into these shows, you have to give something. So I think Sonja Morgan did it well. You know, obviously she never necessarily portrayed her daughter on the show, so her daughter never necessarily appeared on the show. That was something very specific. And so what I'm saying though is, if you come into a show, you have to give something. And if you don't give something, then you do potentially run the risk of like going more the drama route. So Sonia Morgan, say what you say, she's redundant. She's going to cry over the, things that are associated with her family, who back years ago when she was in love and in a different scenario. And maybe her cachet of life or her socialiteness isn't the same, but at the same time, like, it's fun to see that, her tears, her goofiness. Sonia Morgan, in my opinion, will always be a superstar reality TV personality, along with Luann. Luann, and you do got to put Bethany in there. Bethany, I would never put as a overrated. Bethany, in my opinion, is somebody who specifically took the genre to a whole nother level, not just the business acumen, but the concept of like when she ran her specific spin-off shows, which was the Bethany Getting Married and Bethany Ever After, really in my mind, based on where reality TV was at the time, the Jersey Shore was big, the Real World was kind of coming out, wasn't as popular. Your Survivors, your Amazing Races, your Big Brothers were wonderful and they were booming, but those were reality TV competition shows like The Voice, like American Idol, stuff of that nature. And everyone, yes, you had your reality TV competition series that did launch the careers of a Carrie Underwood, a Kelly Clarkson, a Fantasia Barrino, yes, but those were all people that were artists that were aspiring to do that. Bethany Frankel, in my opinion, was one of the first people who took reality TV based on coming from Martha Stewart's show, and then transitioning into just jumping off the page and becoming so amazing on the Real Housewives of New York, and like business acumen, getting all the publicity and the press opportunities, and almost just like the new social cachet that she earned by being on the show and making a lot of money, and going from this, struggling, so to speak. I always feel like she had a little more leverage than what the show gave, but nonetheless, going from this to this, and that's fun to watch as viewers. And she was the queen of the one-liners. Anyways, I was just going to say Bethany, a honorable mention, but I want to say Luann. When you watch Luann in the early seasons and her uptightness, I relate to an uptight, not pretentious, but an uptight cast member each and every time. I loved Luann at the beginning. The season Real Housewives of New York, at the very early seasons when Luann did not come back in a full-time capacity, it was missed. She was missed. And I think that every opportunity that Luann does reality TV, or her cabaret, Money Can't Buy Me class, Elegance is Learned, anything she does is fun. Do you remember when they made fun of her because she had a performance, and it was in Florida? She had a performance and they made fun of her because she wanted to take a picture of herself behind a marquee that she's going to be performing there tonight. First of all, that's marketing and promotions, and second of all, we can't laugh at people who go for theirs. You know what I mean? Now, is she the greatest talent? Yeah, no, she's fun, but I think like in terms of that marketing and the way they all made fun of her, I think Bethany particularly made fun of her. Like, how silly! Why would she be, going to her cabaret theater and showcasing, I'm performing here tonight? How lame that is. And mind you, I'm somebody who kind of struggles with the other side of that. I need to sometimes, showcase and show up and market and promote myself, even more. Even the regards of like Bravo TV, Watch What Happens Live. I've made several appearances, talking with Candy, talking with Aaron, Reba McEntire, taking a shot with Reba McEntire, as a call-in for Watch What Happens Live. Troye Sivan, Zachary Quinto, Brooklyn, who is David Beckham and Posh Spice's son. Like, I've done a lot of really fun things, but much like the commentary from Bethany, oh, why would you promote that? Why would you do that? Lou's doing the other thing. Lou's like, this is what I'm doing. I got a show. Let me show up. Let me show up for myself. Let me be excited. Let me be proud. And I think like I do the opposite. I get real quiet and I'm like, let the work speak for itself. And so while I didn't love what Bethany was saying, I'm somebody who kind of lives it a little more calm, and I want to be humble. And yes, I've worked in this business for, radio and broadcast and television for 15 years, but that's all cool and everything. And I'm more that. That is who I am. I want to continuously be the guy who's let the work speak for itself. But when I see Luann as a reality TV personality, the reason I like her is because, yes, she does go for her. She shows up big for herself, and I don't think it's anything to be made fun of. And specifically, the thing about Luann that makes her such a great reality TV star also is the many kind of like the 9 lives we've seen with Lou, from, very uptight and, carrying the countess, thing with her, and then being, drunk and going through embarrassment, both with marriage, both legally. She's just somebody you always want to see rebound. And I think when you make a really great reality personality in terms of casting or the network, they need somebody who's always going to have a story and tell a story. Have a story and tell a story. So Luann is great. Now we got to talk about the great Kenya Moore. Kenya Moore will always be the most important thing from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. Kenya Moore on another level. Whether she does Real Housewives of Atlanta, whether she leaves Real Housewives of Atlanta, where she comes back and gets a spinoff, whether she goes to do another TV show, she is. I was born in the 80s, so I was growing up in the 90s, and yes, Kenya Moore was specifically and significantly that girl. She really was. So to kind of make it as if, oh, you're a has-been or you're from the 90s. Thank you. If you were there, I was there. You know what I mean? I'm turning 20 years old around the year 2000, so I remember the legend that was Kenya Moore. And, all the things she did on the show. I'm talking about the Kenya Moore hair care, the Gone with the Wind Fabulous. Like, there is just nothing that could ever stop the great Kenya Moore in terms of her success. Now, will she continue to push and sort of be the most time after time, and you do have to kind of be like, ooh, this is a lot, Kenya. Yes, she will. She's not somebody that you do watch and be entertained by in the TV space, and you're like, oh, she's perfect. But she's pretty close to perfect. She's gorgeous. Coming from the history and the background that she always speaks upon, not having a mother in her life, and even what that could do in terms of her confidence, but I think also her fortitude to push through. That's what makes her so great. So anyone who ever had the concept of Real Housewives of Atlanta was something before her. No, it wasn't. It didn't start till season 5 when the great Kenya Moore, came through with the Gone with the Wind Fabulous. And yes, you could try your very best to try to make fun of her. And here's the thing you don't want to think about too is like, why would you make fun of somebody who had such a big career at a time? And at that time, when you were trying to succeed, the elements were a little bit different. You had to get casted. It was much more rich. You can't put the comparison of like, oh, well, nowadays, a new Real Housewives of Atlanta cast member is the same as Kenya. Look at, they're booking this and they're booking that and they're booking this. That didn't happen before. If you were put on back in the day, if you got an opportunity back in the day, it's because you were something. You didn't get to take to social media and create like a messy, controversy. And then, that buzz sometimes turns into a monetized situation. People want to work with you, et cetera, et cetera. Kenya was different. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, I'm just trying to say, if you're not of my age bracket, I'm in my 40s, we remember what Kenya Moore meant to so many people. She really did light it up. She was our girl of the 90s, so never make fun of that. And you also can't knock the fact that how wonderfully she did on the show. Yeah, was she embarrassed? Did she take a shot at love and it didn't work out? I mean, that is so true for everybody. We're always making these decisions that when we look back, we're like, how did we get here? But she has her beautiful daughter. Kenya Moore continues to push through business-wise, and she's just the type of cast member, much like a Cynthia Bailey, also if you remember what Cynthia Bailey meant, she was it. These Cynthia, Kenya, they were so powerful and they really shined in their time. So of course, Real Housewives of Atlanta, they would do the same. But that's not to say anybody who has a name makes for good reality TV. That's very specific. Not everyone who makes has a name from the past you could just bring onto a show. It takes a very special cast member, and I think Kenya Moore really was wonderful, and she was that good. I could talk about Kenya Moore forever and ever, and if you think or search through the channel here, you will see that I talk about Kenya Moore a bunch. I was doing Real Housewives of Atlanta, like who would be the Mount Rushmore of the Real Housewives of Atlanta, and it would not be Nene Leakes. No, no, no. It would be Kenya Moore, Candy Burris, so on and so forth. So search the channel and you can find that. Now I'm going to talk about the wonderfully iconic Melissa Gorga. But before I do, if you wanted to like, comment, subscribe, and support this channel, here is how you would do it.
For more randomness, hit the Patreon at patreon.com/randomlyRonnieJr. Did you remember to like, comment, and subscribe? Oh, come on, stop being so lazy. This show has no budget, but whose fault is that if you don't like, comment, or subscribe?
Okay, so how do I love Melissa Gorga as a reality TV superstar? Let me count the ways. Melissa Gorga is Real Housewives of New Jersey, and you have got to understand that Joe's sister meant nothing in my mind, okay? The show was the show. There was a table nudge. The table was not flipped. There was a bunch of cast members, Caroline, don't mess with my family. I'm glad you liked it. I didn't like it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. Have fun with it. But I also thought it was very interesting, and this could be a whole deep dive I'll do separately, but right now I'm just going to talk about the great Kenya Moore. I'm sorry. Oh, I just talked about Kenya Moore. Right now I'm going to talk about the great Melissa Gorga. That is a spinoff I'm ready for. Kenya Moore, Melissa Gorga, maybe even throw in a Larsa Pippen and a Giselle Bryant. Oh my gosh. I should be casting for Bravo and NBC Universal. But anyways, if you liked the original Real Housewives of New Jersey, wonderful. But I will tell you this, to me it never was that impressing. Like I wasn't impressed. I wasn't impressed by the concept of, she sort of like everybody against Danielle. I'm never really a big fan of like a lot of people going up against one person, whether they, I don't know, it feels very punching down. And I just felt like that scene as I watched it, and I watched the first season of Real Housewives of New Jersey, it was okay. Now, the show got good because of all the interesting family dynamics. Yes, yes, yes. But Melissa Gorga came through. She was young. She had to take so much criticism. And if you notice, go back to her first season. Go back to that season. And if you see the joy that she put in that first season, and you got to put yourself in those shoes. She's coming into a show that is essentially her husband's sister's show, whatever you want to call it. I don't necessarily think she did anything. I'm talking about the sister-in-law. But Melissa Gorga came in having to sort of be under that magnifying glass. And if you notice at the beginning, she was nothing but joyful. Look at it when she's, going to, when they went to the, I think they were, were they in Hoboken or Edgewater or something like that? And they were just so excited. Joe and Melissa go. They go to see Albie, Chris, the apartment. And it's just like so much joy that I think Melissa Gorga brought to the show. And sometimes people do forget that because there was always a lot of drama, the Joe and the Joes. Anyways, I don't want to even put Joe and Joe Gorga's sister in this conversation. If you like them, that's great. Oh, yay. If you like the forehead, yay. That's all wonderful to you. But I like Melissa Gorga. She's a superstar. She is the Jennifer Lopez of Real Housewives. She's so fashionable. She's so fun. I think Melissa Gorga deserves a spinoff with Joe, with Donna Marco, with the cousin and his husband, like they're the sisters. That's just the show that I want to watch. I think we are in the space, this could be for like Peacock streaming, maybe even instead of Bravo, where we just want fun reality TV programming. It doesn't have to be that salacious, and it kind of went to that direction over the course of a lot of years, not just this reality show, but others as well. Things that go on social media and, Reddit and stuff like that. I'm just saying, me personally, I like Melissa Gorga. I like Joe Gorga. They seem very fun. I would watch a spinoff of theirs. I think she does give you that envy feel, like, yes, you are envious of me because I am naturally a confident person. I relate to the cast members that have a natural sense of confidence, and not even because I grew up that way. I grew up very humble, very quiet. But when I watch on the TV and I say, arrogance is different than being confident and showing up for yourself. Melissa Gorga shows up for herself. On Display, to me, still a very fun song. And I think like in my opinion, as I've said time and time again about Melissa Gorga, if you do search through this channel, we talk about Melissa Gorga quite a bit. She's just somebody that is going to be successful no matter what. Wherever her, career would have ended up, she would have found a way to be the light in the room, to be funny, to be cute. And I got to do one more thing too. This is just as an acknowledgement of oh, Melissa Gorga, and look at her first season compared to now. What are we talking about here? You are a cast member on a show, and so easily sometimes on the social media, it wants to get looked at as oh, she is, it's an insecurity. People make changes within their physical appearance on the basis of what makes them feel good. It isn't always about the other person or the commentary. That is the silliest thing. Me personally, I have gained a little bit of weight. Double chin is in action right now, but that doesn't mean I don't want to work hard for myself to get better. In my day, I have been up in my 20s even, while I was working 9 days a week. Yes, I know there's only 7, but I was working 9. I've been upwards towards 320 pounds and then also 175 pounds in the same 28, 29, 30-year-old year based on my career tenacity and maybe some imbalances in terms of my scheduling. But the point is, I only wanted to elevate and succeed for myself. It had nothing to do with others and the judgment and the opinions. But I do think it's very special that she owns, Melissa Gorga. She owns everything that she's done. She's not embarrassed. What's the big deal? I am on a television show. Why not try to show up and present myself in the best possible way? I think she's a superstar. I think she belongs on, I always say one of my favorite TV shows, possibly because I want to do it career-wise too, is the Kelly and Mark Consuelo show. I loved Regis Philbin. Kathy Lee Gifford was so funny, specifically when she was on with Hoda, but also with Regis, and I like that style of show. Let me just tell you, if I could wave the magic wand, I and Melissa Gorga would do a competitive Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelo's kind of show. That would be my co-host. I feel like I'm that talented. Melissa Gorga is clearly that talented, and so yeah, it'd be going down. She is a superstar. She's cute. She seems very caring. She's a wonderful mother. I cannot go on and on about how much I love Melissa Gorga. Now, moving on, I got to talk about the great Giselle Bryant. Now, I don't have to say too many things about how wonderful Giselle Bryant is, but you do have to know that if Giselle was not on that show, the show would have went nowhere. That is number one. She played along even in that pilot. Remember in the pilot, Karen wanted to get in a tiff. Karen wanted to get all huffy and puffy because she said, I'm supposed to sit in the center. That is what good etiquette is. And the thing is, if that is the case, you do have to say it. Now, to say that Karen did not become a superstar on the show, that would be crazy. Karen has done really, really well. She's made a great frenemy to Giselle. But there is no world where Karen is on the show without Giselle Bryant and that show succeeds, Real Housewives of Potomac. But there is a world where Real Housewives of Potomac has a Giselle Bryant and no Karen Huger, and the show will still go on and be completely successful. But it is an ensemble. They've had some cast members, some questionable cast members over the years, but I think they finally got a stride, and it's really cool to see them do so well. Specifically, that area, there was the Real Housewives of DC that only got the 1 season. And so to be able to get the Real Housewives of Potomac so close in proximity, which I imagine is sort of hard to cast for, but they managed to do a really great show. There were some hiccups in that show, but I think all in all, it's created some really, really wonderful cast members. I'm growing to love Dr. Wendy even more. Giselle, like I said, is a superstar. I interviewed her personally. Of course, she said wonderful things about me. She also did not kiss my ass, and I think a lot of people who do interview her, they are waiting for her rawness or her bluntness, and then they just wait. And as soon as she does something, it's Giselle was mean to me, My confidence is within, so I'm Giselle, you're dope, I'm dope, we're all amazing. You're amazing, I'm amazing. Giselle, you're a superstar, I'm a superstar. I don't really have oh gosh, she's just blah, 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 blah. No, Giselle was a superstar. She was a Virgo. We both loved Kenya Moore. It was a wonderful interview. It is, of course, on this and my other youtube.com/ with a little @ Hey Ronnie Jr. Hey Ronnie Jr. It is over there, so you can check that out too. Full interview, lots of fun segments too. We did that at AfterBuzz. Of course, AfterBuzz through Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, which was the first official after show platform. Boy, if the monetization could have been back then for all the work that I did, I mean, we got busy at AfterBuzz. We did a great job. Anyways, we are here. We are still pushing. We enjoy you checking out what we're doing. I could go on and on about how I love Dorit. I could go on and on about how I love Lisa Barlow. I could go on and on about how I love Mary from Salt Lake City. I could go on and on about how Heather Dubrow, to me, is just so good on that darn Real Housewives of OC. Miami is the only one. I mean, Larsa is the queen, but Marisol, superstar. Alexia, she gets into it with her words, superstar. Dr. Nicole, she was wonderful during her run. Gertie has really shown up and given a lot of different story. You know, when she came to the scene originally, you thought businesswoman, and she was career and wonderful family and husband, and we've just seen so much out of Gertie, which is great. Kiki, I mean, Lisa, like Real Housewives of Miami is the all-star season. Beverly Hills always gets the credit as the crown jewel of the franchises for Bravo. No. Not until Kyle is off the show. No. Since season 1, episode 1, frame 1, Kyle, no. Anyways, I'll talk about Beverly Hills in a second. But yeah, Miami is just, it's the show. It is just such a wonderful show. Larsa, though, oh, the amount of times I talked about, as I said earlier, Melissa Gorga is the same amount of times I talked about the great Larsa Pippen. Now, here is the odd, not conflict, but Larsa did a show on the E! channel with Teresa, and I'm not a fan of Teresa, as I always say, like she's fine, enjoy. But, and Larsa and Teresa became close. But I think like Larsa gets along with everybody. But, I'm just so much more Larsa, Melissa, Giselle, Kenya, Sonia, Luann, even Bethany, when she's not, screaming across the digital platforms. I like the fun girls, I like the pretty girls, you know what I mean? Teresa she's not, for my taste. Who am I? I'm not perfect. Close to it, but I'm not perfect. Okay, so my overrated people, I gotta say, are Nene Leakes, Teresa, and Kyle. And now the first thought you could have there is like, well, but they've all been on forever. Hey, listen, just because something is effective and is making Bravo a ton of money, there is the notion of, are we watching and being entertained by you, or are we laughing with you, or are we laughing at you? Each of them have huge fan bases, but Kyle specifically, I would say, I'll go in the breakdown. Kyle, to me, frame 1, season 1, episode 1, I was like, this girl's weighing the show down. She's just so she's like a boring, very boring cast member. And I understand sometimes you have to have that contrast. You have your fun, the little bit of chaos with like a Camille or an Adrian. So like the balance is Kyle, but I still don't think she was that. For Kyle to have gotten a season 2, much less every other season, I mean, I could only imagine there was, somebody within casting or the network or production that just like loved Paris Hilton, in their late teens and early 20s, and now are an executive, and they just give such a like, oh, that's Paris's aunt. And so that's maybe why, maybe there's like an inner like bias, like I'm just gonna always continue to create success for Kyle, because there's no reason that Kyle should be successful. It's a very unentertaining watch. It's always been. I have been saying this since season 1. It's the only reason I never got into Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Again, who am I? Who cares about my opinion? Nene Leakes, the show did not start when Nene Leakes started the show. Specifically, I actually liked Sheree, She by Sheree, much better originally. Kim, I thought, was a little goofy and nutty, I guess. I love when Candy came on the scene. I'm a big fan of Candy. Big fan of Candy. Big fan of the way Candy has composed herself over the years. But to me, really, and I don't love Portia like that, but when Portia and Kenya started the show, Real Housewives of Atlanta then became a bigger show. One could say, and I think this is why I don't usually call her Nene Leakes. I call her No Lax, because she is lacking. One could say she's got the most memes memes and GIFs and all these things, and that's great, but that doesn't necessarily pay you. You know, that's the thing about it. When you get this platform, and this is actually me advocating for Nene Leakes, like as if I was like, you know, her manager or something. I feel actually a little bit bad or sad because she's contributed so much in terms of those memes that I guess are funny. They're not funny to me. And the GIFs, I guess they're funny. They're not funny to me. Like to have contributed so much, but to have been left with so little. That part I do feel a little bit of sensitivity, because I do think that character, No Lax, she did show up. Like she did at least kind of come through with an opinion, and I think that is actually valued. But yeah, she's definitely in my overrated. I could never ever say Real Housewives of Atlanta and even put Nene Leakes in the top 5 cast members. She's very low, very, very low in terms of compelling cast members for Real Housewives of Atlanta. Probably because she's taken a lot of swings, you know, swing and a miss. Probably the one time she really connected, that was a baseball reference, FYI. Probably the one time she really connected, but again, you take a lot of swings, you will eventually, you know, what do they say? The clock is right at least twice a day. She did entertain me a little with the I said what I said, because I liked that. I did like that. I was like, oh, okay, you said this, you said it. It's like, well, I said it, so of course I meant it. That I actually thought was really cool. But again, swing and a miss, you're eventually going to connect. The clock does spin around and it is correct twice a day or something like that. Whatever that slogan is. Anyways, and my last one, who I've already mentioned when I was talking about the great Melissa Gorga, is Melissa Gorga's sister-in-law. Yeah, the tree. Not very entertaining to me. Yeah. So I hope she's happy. She is happy. So good for her. She's got all of her daughters and everything is wonderful. So yeah, if you like a cast member and I don't, and I find them overrated, that is just an opinion. Lots of people are like, are you kidding me? Larsa Pippen? And I'm like, yeah. First time we ever saw Larsa, season 1, episode 1, frame 1. I was like, oh, A Star is Born. Left the show, and specifically in my mind, she, as I recall, it was very much while she was still trying to work it out, proverbially work it out with Scotty of that era, and I don't think Scotty really liked her doing the show, so she left the show. Everything that Larsa does is actually based in like a lot of morals and ethics and very admirable, but no one tries to see that because people only want to see, oh, you're Kardashian wannabe. I've always said, and now come close, let's really say it. I've always said, and it is a joke, but I must say it, Larsa didn't need the Kardashians needed Larsa. And by the way, years and years ago, we were talking about plastic surgery in this episode. Let me give you a little screenshot. Let me take it back to when I was doing red carpet interviews 100 years ago, and a unknown Kim Kardashian, walked through the red carpet, and she was known for the video, but she wasn't known to the degree of even having a TV show at the time. And you will see, sometimes when your career is in the public eye, you will kind of change it up. And so the Kim Kardashian of all those years ago certainly doesn't look like the Kim Kardashian of now. And when money is involved and you have the resources to kind of change things, sometimes people do that for self and they don't necessarily do it for anyone else. But yeah, that is my joke. My joke is always Larsa didn't need the Kardashians needed Larsa. But it is actually my thought that they all still continue to kind of be cool and chill. My liking of Larsa has zero to do with the Kardashians. I didn't even really know she was on the show for those couple years. Larsa to me was always oh, what a confident girl. I really like her. I really, really, really like her. So sometimes I feel like people can't take her, and that's just what it is. I think an honorable mention has to go to Vicky of Real Housewives of OC, even a Joe and a Gina of Real Housewives of OC all those years ago. Who would have thought the show did this well, this franchise Real Housewives of OC, New York, New Jersey, Miami, Potomac, Dallas, Salt Lake City, et cetera, et cetera. When is the Chicago or San Francisco one or New Orleans one going to come? In any case, the honorable mention for the people that started the show. In fact, when the show started, I thought it was like the Real World. Remember, the Real World was first in New York, and then it was at Venice Beach, and then it was in San Francisco, and then it was in London. So I was actually confused initially because I was like, wait, the Real Housewives of OC, isn't it over? So that's actually a really smart thing that they did. I mean, Real World, MTV's The Real World, they could have done that. They could have continued to give you more and more and more of the the particular like cast, but they really just did a one and done. They did a season. It was more of a docu-style thing anyway, and then they moved on. Those cast members didn't necessarily come back unless they went to MTV's The Challenge. But for Real Housewives, I was so surprised. I was like, oh, it's a whole new batch of cast members, now in New York, now in New Jersey, now in Atlanta, now in DC, now in Potomac. I didn't know that, so I thought that was really cool. Anyways, who are your favorite cast members and who makes a compelling reality TV star? We could go on and kind of talk about Flavor of Love cast members. We could talk about Survivor cast members. We could talk about Big Brother cast members. But I just wanted to do an episode to find out who you thought was a Real Housewives superstar cast member and what makes them compelling and who you like. And if you agree with me that the three most overrated on the franchise across the board have always been like a Kyle, No Lax, Nene Leaks, and also a Tree, I guess we could call her. Those are the ones that I'm just like, you've had some success, but have you entertained us? Which is also the question. Have I entertained you? I mean, hopefully I did. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, reminding you that I do have a Patreon account. I've worked in radio, broadcast, etc., for years and years and years. So if you ever see me grumpy, that's why, because I need to get my monetization going a little better. So show me the love on the Patreon, and we are having fun. And hopefully one day I'll be able to create and produce the Melissa Gorga spin-off show. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it. We will talk on the next one.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.